Halls of Torment released into early access in 2023 with a full release in September of 2024. So, why am I talking about this game in November of 2025? Because it was recently added to both PlayStation and Xbox consoles, with the Xbox version being on Game Pass. Retailing for just $10 on console, is Halls of Torment worth playing on console? This review is going to answer that question. Let's talk about the graphics and technical performance of Halls of Torment on console. For graphics, Halls of Torment is what you get when you take the first Diablo game and combine it with the gameplay of Vampire Survivors. It's a perfect pairing, and the influence of both games is clearly present. The way your characters look and move, the environments around them, the different levels you progress through, and even the enemies and bosses you fight are all clearly influenced by Diablo. Even the inventory system, with the ability to assign items and equipment to your character, could have come straight from Diablo 1. But there's also the gameplay elements of Vampire Survivors, with the hordes of enemies, and the gems and coins you pick up in order to progress your character. The developers struck the perfect balance between the looks of Diablo, but the functionality of Vampire Survivors. Moving on to the technical performance, Halls of Torment runs reasonably well on console. I played it on the Xbox Series X, and I never ran into any frame rate drops or stuttering, but there are no graphical options apart from the ability to turn off the retro pixelated art style. I didn't have any bugs, but I did have several crashes during my playthrough. Overall, the game looks and runs good, but I do expect a couple of patches to come in the future to improve stability.
Hey! Praise the gods! Another mortal soul! I beg of you, release me from this wretched cage. The key must be somewhere nearby.
The story of Halls of Torment is a little more complicated than Vampire Survivor, which means it actually exists, but far less than the narrative of Diablo. The game starts with you selecting one of 3 champions that explore the halls and kill the lord of each area. Who are these lords? I would assume demons, but who really knows? These 3 champions you start with all correspond with the same kind of characters in Diablo 1. You have a swordsman, a cleric, and an archer. Each level has an NPC defined, but rather than having a story, they act as vendors in the main area. There's this guy that looks after a well, where you can send a single piece of equipment to the starting area for each of your runs, a guy who makes potions for added effects, and a person who lets you use gems to permanently enhance your character's stats. So there's no real story here, in so much that it's just a setting for what's going on, and where you're going is essentially hell, and you're killing evil bosses. But most people aren't going to play Halls of Torment for the narrative. They're going to be far more interested in the gameplay. For this review, I'm going to assume that you have played Vampire Survivors, or are at least familiar with the premise. It's a roguelike where you enter a single, nearly endless map to fight hordes of enemies. You start with a character that has a different array of stats, and you collect experience crystals and coins that drop from enemies to level up. Each level up allows you to improve your stats, but if you have a special ability, gained from cards that you pick up from bosses that you defeat or on the ground in special areas, you can upgrade the effect of that ability. So for example, you can upgrade the damage your weapon does, or the damage your ability does. There are a ton of different upgrades to choose from, and you get to pick from 4 different options each time you level up. There isn't any real wrong choice here, but there are definitely preferred builds based on who you're playing. The swordsman, for example, is slow, but he has a lot of health. You might want to make him faster or build him even more tankier to take hits. The builds can vary quite a bit by the champion you choose, the RNG of the choices you're given during your playthrough, and the abilities you pick from. This all ensures that each run feels fairly unique, even though there are only a set amount of abilities to pick from. That being said, there are a lot of spells and abilities, and they all function differently, and they all have their own benefits and challenges associated with them. There are 6 levels to play through, with each being unlocked as you fulfill the quests associated with it or kill the boss. There are 12 heroes you unlock in the base game, gradually earning them as you beat levels, with 2 more available in the DLC that can be bought for $5 extra. It also comes with a new level, the Boglands, but as I didn't play the DLC, I will not be talking about the Boglands or those extra characters. These 12 heroes that you get in the base game are all pretty unique, although they play the same way for the most part. What differs the most is their stats, with some striking fast and weak, others strong and slow. I will say some of the heroes are just plain better than others. The archer is fast, but I didn't like how weak their bow attack was. The cleric is insane for damage and status effects, but it can be a glass cannon. The exterminator with his flamethrower was my favorite by far. That thing is just pure destruction, while he moves fast enough and can take enough damage that he can be really fun to play. Alright, let's finish this review by discussing the pros and cons of Halls of Torment. For the pros, the gameplay is fun and addictive. Each run is 30 minutes at most, and if you have any trouble, you can find secrets in the levels to make the final boss a bit easier for you. These items aren't hard to find, but they also aren't necessary if you build your character correctly. You can become insanely overpowered, and enemies just keep coming in this chaotic mass that's just so satisfying to blast apart. You can also restrict yourself in certain ways if you're looking for more of a challenge. Maybe you don't get health upgrades or keep your defense low. There are quests for each level, and they can be challenging. The game runs smoothly on console, even with hundreds of enemies and crazy things happening on screen. But for the cons, the game runs and looks better on PC. There is a definite graphical compromise to make it run smoothly on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. As powerful as those consoles are, PCs just have more power to run the madness that happens in Halls of Torment. The explanation of abilities and upgrades is lacking, and I was confused about what certain upgrades did, like Force, or whether choosing an upgrade invalidated others. Some of the characters still need more balance. There are characters that were so much weaker than others that it would really require the perfect upgrade to make them usable. And that's it for another review. So, is Halls of Torment worth playing on console? For only $10 US, I would say that it's a definite yes. But the fact that it's on Game Pass is even better. If you're looking for the perfect mix of visual style of Diablo and the gameplay of Vampire Survivors, Halls of Torment is for you. I'm the Casual Console Gamer on YouTube, and I'll see you all in the next review.